Hi everyone! Before we dive into this week's episode, please check out our promo of the week.
Hello, twisted humans. Do you find yourself wanting to know more about the latest murder, conspiracy, cult, or haunting?
Then this is the podcast for you. We're bringing the most intense stories that will keep you up at night.
Join us every Tuesday for a glass of wine and a dose of true crime. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Sierra, and this is
Twisted and Uncorked.
Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Jo.
And this is CrimeDivers.
Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode.
Hello, everyone.
So as usual, we're going to highlight a missing person. So who have we got today, Laura?
Okay, so this one's actually quite local to us, Jill. It's been making headlines since New Year. So this is a woman called Alice Byrne.
Oh yeah, I've seen that all over Facebook and everything, all over the news.
Major case. I think we kind of left it a bit of a while just in case she was found, because I didn't actually think it would be this long and still not found her. So if we could just get a bit more awareness out there, then, we can do our bit. So as I said, her name's Alice Byrne. She is aged 28 and her height is 5'6". She was last seen on New Year's Day, so the 1st of January 2022, about, say, between 8 and 10 a.m, leaving a party on Marlborough Street in Portobello, Edinburgh. And she was last seen wearing a long black t-shirt and black jeans. So if you have any information, please call 0751 006 2206 or 0752 8848 369 or the emergency services numbers, which is 999 or 101, and if you can quote the instant number 0647 on the 2nd of January.
Okay.
So let's, as we normally do, just ask you guys out there to share it, especially our listeners in the UK just now.
Yeah, and we do have Scottish listeners as well, so, any information, and even people anywhere, if you see it when I put it on social media, if you could just share it, comment on it, anything, and I will put that information in our show notes, so don't worry if you never caught the number the first time round.
Let's hope that she's found.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed.
So, are we ready to dive into today's case then?
Yep, sure are.
Where in the world are we?
We are in Canada.
And what is the title?
Murder on the Greyhound.
Ooh.
And no, it's not a dog.
I was just going to say, is it a dog?
No, it's not a dog, it's a bus. The Greyhound bus.
All right, okay. Shall we dive in?
Let's dive in.
Okay.
Timothy Richard McLean Jr., known as Tim, was born on the 3rd of October 1985 in Victoria, British Columbia. He grew up in both Winnipeg and Ely, Manitoba. Tim was a really active guy. He would never sit down. He had, so much energy, and he just loved being, round people. And he wasn't shy. He could talk to anyone and everyone, and, he could just meet somebody, and 5 minutes later, he would know everything about them. He just, that would be his friend.
All right, okay.
So in his late teens, Tim had moved from Winnipeg to live with his dad, Tim Sr., and stepmom, Nadine. They said that his dream was to travel, and that's what he loved doing, and he wanted to be famous. He never said exactly what he wanted to do, but he would just say, one day everybody will know who I am.
All right.
1 year, his friend Tiffany, she'd got a job at the Red River exhibition in Winnipeg, and she said that since she knew that Tim was always up for anything, so she called him and said, what are you doing this summer? Mm-hmm. And he was like, nothing. So she's like, right, pack a bag. So she said, pack a bag for a week. Don't know how long we're going to be away for, but a week's worth of clothes will do you, because, obviously we'll wash them.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever. And that's how Tim found the Western Canada Carnival circuit.
All right.
So he started working at the carnival. He fitted right into the carnival community. They were close-knit, they partied just as hard as they worked. And they were just one big family. And, he could talk, as I said, he was really outgoing and would talk to anybody. You know what it's like when you go to the carnival, everybody's, they're always really friendly with you, aren't they?
Definitely.
So, in a good week, Tim could make like $1,000 or more.
Wow.
And he often spent his money as quickly as he earned it. As I said,
right,
they were partying all the time around. But he loved his life. He loved moving from place to place, and he loved being part of the carnival. By 2008, Tim was 22, and he had found the place that he wanted to put down roots, and that was British Columbia. So at the end of July, Tim was working the Klondike Days exhibition in a place called Edmonton, and the carnival's next stop was going to be Regina. And Tim decided instead of going to Regina, he was going to go home. I know why she's laughing. She's going to start laughing, aren't you?
No.
You're going to start laughing?
No, I'm not. I'm good.
I'm going to have to explain now, aren't I?
Yeah.
Well, when I was researching this, me and Laura were talking not that long ago about how if we don't know how to pronounce something, we find out how to pronounce it and then we write it as you say it.
Uh-huh.
And so Regina is actually spelled Regina, and I would have said Regina, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But it's not, it's Regina, so I've written in brackets as in vagina. So I remembered to call it Regina and not Regina.
And I'm just like really childish.
And she's really childish because I actually sent her a photo of what I'd written, hadn't I? Like Regina as in Regina. And I sent it to her, so she knew that was, as soon as I said if I hadn't have told her that already, she would never have known that I'd written as in vagina.
I know.
Right, can we stop talking about vaginas?
Yeah, no. Like, come on, let's move on. I thought it was funny.
I forgot to mention, Tim, I didn't find out too much about it, but Tim actually had a child by the time he was 22 as well, but I didn't really find out much about whether he was still with the mother of the child, or, I didn't really see anything about the child, but it was just...
I really say though.
Yeah. So, so he decided that he wasn't going to go to Regina, he was going to go home to Winnipeg to make arrangements for his move to British Columbia. So he was going to be taking a week off from the carnival. So his friends offered to buy him a plane ticket from Edmonton to Winnipeg, but he declined and said, thanks, but I'd rather take the Greyhound bus.
Oh dear.
Yeah. And this journey would take about 24 hours.
Oh wow. That's a long journey.
Yeah, I would have rather have just got the plane.
Especially if my friends are offering to buy me a ticket.
Yeah, I know, but obviously I think he just liked the bus, so fair enough. Mm-hmm. So on the 30th of July 2008, just after midnight, Tim boarded the 1170 bus to take him home, but unfortunately he never got there. A new passenger boarded the bus at a stop in Ericsson at 6:55 p.m. This was a man called Vincent Li. Vincent had been born in Dandong in China on the 30th of April 1968, so by this point he would be 40. Mm-hmm. He had graduated from Wuhan Institute of Technology with a bachelor's degree in computing. From 1994 to 1998, he worked in Beijing as a computer software engineer, and he then moved to Canada on the 11th of June 2001 with his wife and became a Canadian citizen on the 7th of November 2006. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, though, once in Canada, he couldn't get a good paying job. Even though he had his qualifications and stuff, all the jobs that he could get was just like low pay. He had like a series of low paying jobs. Okay. And him and his wife got divorced. And his most recent job was delivering newspapers in Edmonton. So that's just kind of the kind of jobs that he was getting.
Yeah, doesn't sound like he'd be earning a lot of money.
Yeah, and in 2005 he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Schizophrenia?
Oh, right, schizophrenia.
Some people call it schizophrenia and some people call it schizophrenia.
Yeah,
I'm not sure which is the right one. I would say schizophrenia.
Both the same, just slightly different pronunciation.
Yeah, but he was diagnosed with it, but it was left untreated. So people described him as not being able to participate in normal social conversations. So he would blurt out things that just seemed to be irrelevant to the conversation, and or his mood that would seem to be out of context to the conversation.
Right, okay.
So Vincent later told Dr. Yaron that he heard a voice in his head that he believed was God, warning him about evil people, ordering him what to do.
Okay.
So Vincent had a job interview to go to. So with a few bags and his laptop, he boarded the Greyhound bus at the Edmonton depot. And this was the day before Tim boarded the bus.
Right.
So Vincent also carried a hunting knife, which he had recently bought because God had told him his life was in danger and that people would try to kill him. So Vincent's plan was to go all the way through to Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. And if he had done that, then him and Tim would never cross paths.
Oh, right,
because obviously he was the day before Tim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So his ticket was, he did have a ticket to Winnipeg, and then from Winnipeg he was going on to a place called Thunder Bay, but for some reason he decided to get off the bus at a place called Erickson.
Right.
He later said that God had told him, because remember this voice in his head, so God had told him to stay in Erickson. So he just got off the bus. He didn't know why, but, he was just being told to get off the bus. So he got off the bus and he just sat on a bench and he just sat there all night on this bench.
Strange.
Yeah. So the following morning, he had put a note on his laptop saying, for sale, $600. Mm-hmm. A 15-year-old boy went over to him and Vincent asked if he wanted to buy the laptop. And the boy had said that he didn't have that much money. He only had $60 on him. Mm-hmm. And Vincent said, oh, fine, here, take it. And he gave him his laptop for $60.
Okay. So that might, because he's in his mental state, that he probably just thought, oh, well, whatever.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the reason. That's just what happened. So, and it was just basically, I'm just telling you that because that was the only interaction that Vincent had with anyone in Erickson. Uh-huh. So, unsure whether to stay or go because he hadn't heard the voice again, Vincent's like, well, what do I do now? Like,
what, he was just waiting to be...
Yeah, I think he just got, because the voice had told him just to get off the bus in Erickson.
He was waiting for the voice to tell
him. And he was, he didn't know what to do next. He was waiting for the voice to tell him. That's why he sat on this bench all night. And as for, for selling the laptop, I don't know why that was a thing. I don't know. So, as I say, he hadn't heard the voice again. So Vincent decided to get on the next bus that came through town. And that was the Greyhound 1170. Which, if you remember, that is the bus that Tim boarded at Edmonton.
When you say 1170, is that's
the number of the bus?
Is that number of the bus?
1170.
I was thinking about you meaning like the time of the bus, and I was like...
You do realise that there's only 60 minutes in an hour?
Yeah, I know, that's why I was thinking. I was like, she got that wrong. But...
seriously. I sometimes wonder about you.
Yeah, okay.
No, it was the number.
Right.
The Greyhound 1170.
Okay.
So obviously this is the bus that Tim was on. Mm-hmm. So he took a seat at the front of the bus and he just sat there quietly staring into space. So by now the passengers who had boarded the bus at Edmonton, as in Tim and they'd been travelling for almost 18 hours.
Oh, wow.
So they were obviously tired and like they were bored and like a lot of them were asleep. Like Tim was, he was asleep. Mm-hmm. So Tim was sitting up the back of the bus and he was in the row in front of the back seat, so like the second to last back seat. Another passenger called Kaylee, she was sitting in the middle of the bus and she said at first there was like nothing out of the ordinary. She said the bus trip was very long and tiring and really hot with so many people in the bus. And there was another passenger called Stephen. He said that he actually had a bad feeling right from the start when he boarded at Edmonton as well, same as Tim. Mm-hmm. But he just had a bad feeling, but he's obviously just dismissed it, just as you do.
As you do, yeah.
Yeah. So after the bus stopped for a meal break, I don't know where or how far along, but the bus stopped for a meal break and Vincent decided to change seats. So because they'd got off the bus, go get something to eat, and when he came back on, he started walking slowly towards the back of the bus.
Right.
So he looked at every single person as he walked down the aisle before choosing his new seat, and he sat in the same row as Stephen, the guy that I'd mentioned.
Yeah.
And he sat in the seat next to Tim. And Stephen said that he felt his stomach churning, and he just knew there was something about this guy.
Right.
Like he'd had a bad feeling right from the start, and then as soon as he saw this guy, he was like, it just
didn't seem to feel right.
He was just like, nah, something's not right about him. Like there's just, I think that feeling must have been intensified. That's the word. I can't think what it was. So later, when Vincent was asked why he had chosen that particular seat, it was simply because Tim had gave him a friendly acknowledgement as he walked past the seat. Tim had said just something like, how you doing, or all right, he just acknowledged Vincent, and that's why he sat there. Like, if he hadn't, then who knows, he might have sat somewhere else. You know, we don't know, but that's...
And we'll never know.
Yeah, that's why he sat there, so he says. So Tim then fell asleep, but the other guy, Stephen, he still just couldn't keep his mind off Vincent. He just said he was acting odd the whole time.
Right.
He obviously just kind of kept looking at him, you know, because he was like, there's something not right about this man.
Right. I hate that. That's not nice if you have a feeling like that.
No, I know. And so Vincent had with him, he had a 2-litre bottle of Cool Nest tea. I had to look that up. I was like, what's Cool Nest tea? It's just like cold tea.
Like iced tea or something.
Yeah, it must be. It must be something like that.
Never heard of it.
No. But anyway, he had a 2-litre bottle of this.
Right.
And a roll of toilet paper. And he never let go of either of them. And when he wanted a drink...
Well, he was just sitting there.
Yeah, well, obviously one in each hand. And when he wanted a drink, he would put the roll of toilet roll under his chin and then take a drink. Which I don't understand how that works, because do you not put your head back?
Well, unless you're like...
If you're leaning on... I don't know. But yeah, as I said...
You got a bit of toilet roll, I could try it out.
Actually, there's a toilet roll over there.
Okay, I'm just going to try
she's actually going to try it out.
Yeah, well, I think we have to, just for the purpose of science.
No, I think you have to. Right. She's going to get the toilet roll, which is on my desk. Right. Right, put it under your chin.
Got it.
Right, take a drink. Oh, she's doing it. So basically, you can do it without putting your head back.
Yeah, but it's not comfy.
I wonder what his reason for that was then.
It's not a comfortable thing to do.
Maybe he had a sore neck and didn't want to, like, at the back of his neck or something.
Maybe because he didn't want to let it go. That was his way of holding it. So it was still...
Oh, I have no idea, but yeah, thanks for that experiment there. But that's what Vincent was doing. Okay. No idea why. And after a while, Vincent was rocking back and forth, chanting something, but it wasn't in English, so the other passengers didn't know what he was saying. And I'm just wondering if it was because he was Chinese originally, so maybe it was something in Chinese that he was chanting. True. So it was now getting dark outside, and the bus was playing the movie The Mask of Zorro. There were no lights on the bus, so the only light that was coming was just from the TV. And the passengers were all either asleep or watching the film. Mm-hmm. So Tim was still asleep, and Vincent was just sitting there in the dark with sunglasses on, which was strange as well. You know, why would you have sunglasses on in the dark?
You couldn't have seen much then, could he?
And unfortunately, he heard a voice in his head. So he said it was God telling him to kill Tim.
Oh, no.
So Stephen, remember the other guy who's in the same row, he saw Vincent take out the knife and watched in horror as Vincent turned to his right and started to stab Tim. Stephen started yelling, like, stop the bus, somebody's getting stabbed, and he was pretty sure that maybe half of the passengers heard him, and the other ones that didn't, they heard the commotion that came up seconds later, because obviously everybody just started panicking. Yeah. And he said his priority was to get everybody else away from Vincent. He said the minute that he turned, that Vincent turned, he got up and he just ran down the aisle. Kaylee, who was in the middle of the bus, said he ran past her and was shouting, pull over, get out of the bus as fast as you can. Right. So as you can imagine, everybody was panicking, people were shoving each other out the way,
chaos.
Yeah, total chaos. And Kaylee, she said behind her, she could hear the horrifying sounds of Vincent's attack on Tim. Kaylee said that she could hear Tim screaming, and obviously to this day, that still haunts her. As people were pushing past, Stephen, he could see there was 3 people that were behind Vincent on the back of the bus. His wife, Stephen's wife, and there was a mother and her young son. So they were obviously too terrified to try and get past Vincent, with what he was doing to Tim. So they were kind of trapped, shit, what do we do here? So Stephen, he managed to get to the back of the bus. So he got to his wife and he looked over at Vincent and Tim. Tim had tried to jump over, so obviously he'd been asleep, got wakened up being stabbed. He tried to jump over Vincent and he landed in the aisle, so he was now on the ground in the aisle, right beside Stephen's wife, and Vincent was still stabbing him.
Jesus.
So Stephen said that he must have stabbed Tim about 50 or 60 times by this point. And unfortunately, he just knew that there was nothing anyone could do to help Tim. It was just...
because that's what I wondered, why because there was obviously a lot of people in this bus, why they hadn't just somebody went up and sort of grabbed this guy.
Well, they were probably too terrified for a start. But I think everybody's priority was just to get out the way. There's a madman on the bus, and they all want just to get off and save themselves. But as I said, like Stephen did go back, but he was like, it was too late.
Yeah.
So Stephen managed to help his wife and the others by climbing back over the seats. And he said it was just chaos. Everyone was freaking out. People were crying. Some people were even being sick. So the bus driver, obviously he would have had to have driven a bit until he could pull over safely. Yeah. So once he pulled over, like all the other passengers like got out. So there was a guy called Chris. So he was also on the road heading home. He was a trucker. And he saw the Greyhound pulled over on the shoulder. And he said that people were on the south side of the shoulder and they were like fleeing to the back of the bus, away from the bus. And he said that like all these people had like a look of terror on their faces. So he was like, what the hell is going on? So he pulled over. And one of the passengers called out to him for help, and she yelled to him like somebody's been stabbed to death on the bus. So Chris grabbed like a heavy metal bar from the back of his truck, and him and another man boarded the bus to confront the attacker. By this time, unfortunately, Tim was dead. And Vincent just looked at Chris and the other guy, and like Chris just described Vincent as expressionless. There was just nothing on his face. Vincent then kneeled down. Oh, I think this is horrific. So I'm just telling you now. Be prepared.
I'm like, what are you going to say?
Vincent then kneeled down. So he'd looked up at these two guys, expressionless, turned around, kneeled down over Tim's body, and as Chris and the other man watched in horror, he beheaded Tim.
Why? Why did he have to do that?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, oh my god, that's bad enough that he stabbed him zillions of times, but why? It was just obviously the voice in his head.
Well, yeah, must have. So Vincent then started walking up the aisle towards the men with Tim's head in one hand and the knife in the other hand. Can you? That must have been something like out of a horror movie.
I was just going to say, that is awful.
Yeah, I know. So Chris and the other man, they were just like, right, okay, we need to get out of here. So they like just backed out of the bus and barricaded the door. Vincent slowly walked up to the door and showed Chris the head and the knife. Like, so he sort of held up the head and the knife as if to say, you know, look what I've done.
Yeah.
All the terrified passengers that were now outside, they could see everything that was happening inside the bus.
God.
So can you imagine just seeing that happening?
That's
like
horrific.
I know. So Kaylee, she said that she could see him walking up and down the aisle with Tim's head like it was a prize, and walking back and forth in front of like the big, how they have a big front window at the front of the bus.
Yeah.
And he was like just walking back and forth in the front window, like showing everybody the head to the people outside.
That's sick.
I know. So after having stabbed Tim repeatedly, Vincent said his instructions from God in his head was that he must dismember the body, and he was terrified, but he had to do it. He had to do what he was being instructed, because if he didn't, then the body would come back to life and kill him. So he was terrified and thought he had to do it. This is what he's hearing in his head, yeah.
I'm just not feeling any sympathy for him right now.
No, I know. I get that. By now there were a number of Royal Canadian Mounted Police on the scene, but they made no attempt to board the bus or to stop Vincent from defiling Tim's remains.
Oh, so he carried on, dismember him even more. Oh my god.
They did provide a running radio commentary of what Vincent was doing, and in that they called him Badger, because obviously they didn't know who this guy was. They didn't know the guy's name. So I actually saw some footage of this commentary, and what I heard was them saying, like one guy was saying, Badger appears to be a 6 foot tall Asian male, short dark hair, black t-shirt, armed with a knife right now. And then there's another one saying, Badger is armed with a knife and a pair of scissors, and he's defiling the body. Then another horrific bit. Sorry, just preparing you.
What do you mean? How did you get more horrific from that?
The next bit is, Badger is at the back of the bus, hacking off pieces and eating it.
Oh, yuck, yuck, yuck.
So the Mounties' strategy was simply to wait him out.
Wait him out?
Yeah, so they were letting him do this. Like,
that's awful. Because to me, that's got no respect for Tim.
Or
I
his
know, I know
family.
he's obviously dead, but
Yeah.
it's got no respect for his body.
No.
They're just allowing this crazed killer to continue to do that to him.
Yeah.
That's awful. That's really awful. I'm actually really... That's disgusting.
Well, so their strategy was simply to wait him out, and for more than 4 hours, they kept their distance and watched as Vincent continued to cannibalise Tim's body. Chris, the truck driver, he was asked if the Mounties had explained or rationalised what they were doing, and he said no, and he just couldn't understand why they couldn't have stopped him. He said that he did ask one of the SWAT members to shoot Vincent. He said he tapped him on the shoulder, and he was holding a fully automatic or semi-automatic M16. Obviously, I don't know what that is, but it's a gun. So this guy, the police had weapons.
That's why I'm surprised they didn't, because see when you've told me about what Vincent's obviously said later, I thought, oh, he's actually alive. They've not actually shot him dead, because I thought that might have been
that could have been a possibility, yeah.
To obviously stop him.
Yeah, and Chris even said, but he went on to say, but if they didn't want to do that, I can understand that, not wanting to shoot somebody. But, the SWAT teams, would they not, would have had some sort of gas, or could have got some gas, to knock him out. They could have pumped enough into the bus. They could have pumped enough gas in there to ensure him being knocked out, so that Tim's family would have less to deal with.
I mean, I thought that these SWAT teams are specially trained, so they could have shot him in a non-life-threatening way, in a shoulder or a leg or something.
Yeah.
Just to sort of,
to
stop him and
disable him. I don't know if that's the word.
Just basically so that they could actually get to him. I mean, I thought
you would. There was. That's. I'm sure
other
that's
than just standing there
watching him for 4 hours.
Exactly. I can understand they get to the scene and obviously they have to assess the scene. They'd probably want to try talking to him, you'd think, or, talking him down, and then if that didn't work, surely they then got to progress that into something better than just standing there for 4 hours and not doing anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, what about Tim's family? They had enough to deal with the fact that their family member, that Tim had been murdered, but to actually stand there and, that's... For them to deal with all the rest of it.
Knowing that people are just standing there watching this guy butcher his body.
It's horrendous.
That's awful.
So hours later, Vincent tried to jump out of a window at the back of the bus, and it was only then that he was overpowered by the police.
All right.
So that morning, forensic units found parts of Tim's body scattered all over the bus.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
So the murder made headline news in Canada, America, and around the world. But the victim's identity was actually kept quiet for another 24 hours. And like everyone else, Tim's mum, Carol, first heard it on the news. But she didn't know that the victim was her son. So she just went about her day as usual.
I heard there was an incident, I guess.
Yeah, and she cooked dinner at the local seniors' home. And they all said grace before the meal. And they actually put out a special prayer to the family of the young man who had been murdered.
Not knowing it was there.
And she remembers commenting to some of the seniors there. It was something like, wow, that could have been my son. He came on the Greyhound bus at that same time, but 2 days beforehand. So she thought that Tim was already back home.
Right. Okay.
So she knew that he was getting the bus at that time, because he got it at midnight. So she knew what time he was getting the bus, but she thought it was 2 days before. So she thought he was already back.
Ah, right, okay.
And she just hadn't seen him yet.
Yeah.
So she's saying to these people, oh my God, that's terrifying. That could have been my son. And it actually was.
It was, yeah.
Tim's dad, Tim Sr., he expected his son for dinner that night. So after work, he picked up Tim's favourite meal, which was a bucket of fried chicken. But when he got home, Tim's friends were there. They asked Tim Sr. if he'd heard what happened. And he's like, about what? So obviously they're like, well, he doesn't know. So they were like, right, can we come in? So they went in and turned on the computer, and that's how he found out what happened to his son, by seeing his friends turning on the computer. Okay. Where the hell is the police? Why are the police not at their door telling them what's happened to their son?
Well, yeah, because if they've known for all those hours already, they've known, but then I don't know.
So that's how he found out. So then it was up to him to phone his ex-wife, Carol,
Right.
and imagine having to tell your ex-wife that you know, that you share a child with, that child, what had happened to that child. So, like, yeah, so he said, he told her, you know, it had been Tim on the bus. He said it hadn't been confirmed yet, but that was the belief. So Carol, she was like, she screamed at him, saying, don't say that. Like, she had to run out the door because she thought she was going to be sick. Like, she wasn't, but she just stood at the front door screaming. She just couldn't believe it. It was too horrific. She said her mind just wouldn't wrap around it. She just wouldn't accept it.
I don't know how you could accept
Oh,
that.
I know. Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's bad enough having to accept him being murdered, but never mind the actual what happened to his body afterwards. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think, you know, obviously being murdered is horrific and bad, but what happened after is just...
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, totally.
So a week after Vincent had killed Tim, he was taken to the psychiatric... I always struggle with that word, don't
Yes,
I?
you do.
Psychiatric, is that right? It's the psychiatric ward of the Health Sciences Centre in Winnipeg for his mental state to be assessed by the Manitoba's chief forensic psychiatrist.
What a mouthful.
I know, Dr. Yaron. So this is like what I've said earlier. That was what I'd been telling that Dr. Yaron.
Dr. Yaron,
Yeah. So Vincent had been put on treatment for his schizophrenia, and he started to open up to Dr. Yaron. So he told him that he was the evil son of an evil god. He said that God chose him as the killer and chose Tim McLean as a victim, but he didn't know why. He said that God controls all people for his own reasons. In the assessments, Dr. Yaron had asked Vincent if he understood that he had been charged with murder, because obviously they charged him with murder, which I probably should have said earlier, but I think that we just, you know, we knew that.
Yeah.
He had been charged with murder, and he said, yes, I have taken a life. God said I must die. God said I must kill myself. After 19 visits, Dr. Yaron prepared his assessment of Vincent for the court and state whether he would be fit to stand trial or not criminally responsible for the murder of Tim. So Vincent's trial was on the 3rd of March 2009, with him pleading not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder. The presiding judge, John Scurfield, accepted diagnosis and ruled that Vincent was not criminally responsible for the killing, so he was sent to Selkirk Mental Health Centre rather than prison.
Right.
So later, about Vincent, the psychiatrist was asked, quote, would he have understood, do you think, that the issue there, the main issue, and that is that if he wasn't consumed with these irrational thoughts and commands in his head, that he could be found criminally responsible for Tim McLean's death? And he replied, oh yes, and in fact, in the early part of the assessment, that was his entire belief, that he was responsible for the death because, as he put it, these hands did it. So he knew that he had done it. You know, he was totally sort of taking responsibility for that. But, and rather than avoiding responsibility, Dr. Yaron says that Vincent was angry when he was told that there was no death penalty in Canada. That's what he wanted.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, because God had said that he must die. So
he thought that's what would happen.
So he asked him on several occasions in the earlier interviews whether they would be able to plan his execution or if they expected to execute him. And basically he thought that he would be sentenced to death for his crime, and he was fine with that.
Right, okay.
So Tim was buried near his family and friends in Winnipeg, but his family still couldn't and probably still can't, you know, get those images out of their head, like of what... Imagine just thinking of what happened to him. And his dad and stepmom said they don't sleep at night unless they take sleeping pills, which is awful. So Tim's mum believes that some of the responsibility lies with the police officers who rushed to the scene and then waited and watched.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. That's awful.
Yeah, she said, quote, I understand that they have a preservation of life policy, and clearly my son's life was not able to be preserved. It was already gone, but how do you sit and watch what he's doing? Horrific bit again, I'm just going to warn you. This individual ate my child's eyes, a third of his heart.
Oh God.
And they allowed that to continue. And I'm supposed to be okay with that.
I'm sorry, but
I'm not okay with that. No.
I mean, obviously, it's not even my family member, and I'm not okay with that.
Nah.
That's awful. The police, I'm sorry, should, if they couldn't have got him off that bus and they thought in a safe manner, they should have just shot him.
So, and she went on to say, having lost him the way I lost him was horrific enough without knowing that nobody even tried.
Yeah, that is awful.
So I read a few things about the aftermath of what happened, and this is what I found. So the family of Tim McLean brought a lawsuit of $150,000 against Greyhound, the Attorney General of Canada and Vincent Li. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police have said very little about their tactics that night, especially the decision to allow Vincent to remain on the bus for hours, abusing Tim's dead body, and they refused, because I watched a documentary, and they refused to give the documentary an interview.
Right.
Saying because they had been named in the civil lawsuit filed by the McLean family, it was inappropriate to say anything about the murder of Tim McLean. The family's legal action also blames the Greyhound Company and Transport Canada for lack of security that allowed a passenger to board the bus with a lethal weapon, because remember the guy had Vincent had the knife.
That's the thing that is though, isn't it? Like, I mean, even in normal day life, like, you can get on like a bus here, like, and you could have anything on you.
Yeah.
You know, you could have a weapon on you for all you know, and you could, I mean, you know, anybody could just snap at any moment and do something to a passenger on the bus.
Like, you're making me, that's scary. I don't like that.
Well, you don't go on buses.
Well, I won't now.
No, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know.
I mean, the only place that you really get obviously checked on is if you go to an airport.
To an airport,
and
yeah.
you go on a plane. I mean, you could go on a train,
A bus, yeah.
a tram, you know, all those sort of other types of transport with a weapon. Which is quite scary to think.
It is, thanks. I know, you really scared me.
Sorry.
On the 3rd of June 2010, Vincent was granted supervised outdoor walks within his mental health facility as voted by the review board. On the 6th of February 2011, two passengers, Deborah Tucker and Kayleigh Shaw, filed a lawsuit against Vincent, Greyhound, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the Canadian government for being exposed to the beheading. They were each seeking $3 million in damages, but in 2015 they dropped the lawsuit. So I'm not sure what happened there, but they ended up dropping it.
Well, not funny, but...
Well, I think you're about to say what I'm thinking.
Well, if they've done it, then all the passengers should be...
Well, that's not what I was thinking.
Oh, what were you thinking?
Well, I was just thinking they were each seeking $3 million. And I just think that's not... it must have been a horrific thing to see.
Of course, I agree.
But to me, it just, like, money's not going to change that. Money's not going to get that image out of your mind. It's not going to reverse time. So...
Were they just doing it to get
money? Yeah, just to get, you know how...
Especially when the family themselves, who obviously brought out the civil lawsuit...
That was $150,000.
Exactly, that wasn't $3 million, was it?
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe if it had been less, but the fact that $3 million, that's each.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
They weren't the only passengers on the bus.
Yeah.
So if they were going to get something like that, then surely every passenger on that bus would have been entitled to...
Yeah, just call me sceptical, but I'm just kind of a bit... why are we asking for that money? I just think, nah.
Well, you can understand why it obviously got dropped, maybe.
Yeah. I think maybe they were told,
nah,
get a grip.
Yeah.
On the 30th of May 2011, it was reported that Vincent was responding well to his psychiatric treatment and that his doctor had recommended that he receive more freedoms phased in over several months. On the 17th of May 2012, it was reported that Vincent had been granted temporary passes that would allow him out of the mental health centre for visits to the town of Selkirk, supervised by a nurse and a peace officer. In an interview, Vincent spoke for the first time, saying that he began hearing the voice of God in 2004 and that he wanted to save the people from an alien attack.
Right.
On the 27th of February 2014, it was reported that Vincent would be allowed to have unsupervised visits to Selkirk, started at 30 minutes and expanding to full-day trips. Since 2013, he had been allowed to have supervised visits to nearby beaches. On the 17th of July 2014, it was reported that one of the first officers on the scene, Corporal Ken Barker of the RCMP, had killed himself. His family stated that he was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which isn't surprising when you've seen what you've seen. On the 27th of February 2015, Vincent was given unsupervised day passes to visit Winnipeg as long as he carried a mobile phone. On the 8th of May, it gets worse. On the 8th of May, I was just looking at your face. You're looking very annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
On the 8th of May 2015, Vincent was allowed to live in a group home in the community. So he was out of the mental health facility and he was in a group home.
Nah, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that.
Okay. In February 2016, Vincent had legally changed his name to Will Baker,
Right.
and was seeking to leave his group home to live independently. He won the right to live alone of the 26th of February 2016 upon the recommendation of the Criminal Code Review Board. Are you ready to get... I know you're already annoyed, but this is the worst.
Well, hit me with it.
On the 10th of February 2017, the Manitoba's Criminal Code Review Board ordered Vincent to be discharged, so he was granted an absolute discharge, meaning there will be no legal obligations or restrictions pertaining to his independent living. In other words, he's a free man with a different name and no criminal record.
That's bad. That's disgusting. Like, but I mean, obviously I'm not like a doctor, so I don't know much about mental health, etc. But schizophrenia, I didn't think that was something that was cured or went away. So what happens if the voices started again and then he goes and kills somebody else?
Well, maybe because it's been managed on medication, but that still doesn't change the fact that he committed a crime. I don't have a problem with people. It's hard, isn't it, when it comes to mental health? Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with people eventually being freed, but I believe in one, you should serve some punishment. Mm-hmm. To me, it doesn't sound like he's had any punishment, and you shouldn't have a criminal. You should still have a criminal record.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that he doesn't have a criminal record,
no, I don't think that
is that
because then what? Like I say, I mean, I know he might not do it again, but with mental health, I mean, these things could be triggered again. So I get he's obviously been through probably extensive rehab and all the rest of it. But
I still think it should be on his record.
Well, yeah, and
I don't think his name should have been changed because, well, if he could go and commit, as you said, it could be triggered again, and then he could go and commit a crime under that name, and then because he's got no criminal record, he's got a different name, maybe he would get a lesser punishment because it's his first time offending. You know what I mean? Like,
I just think that, you know, if somebody is diagnosed with schizophrenia and obviously commits that crime, are they ever really going to be safe to be around? I mean,
I don't
like,
know.
Truly 100%? Because I mean, would that, even if I knew somebody had been treated and they were, you know, on the straight and narrow and, you know, been a long time, I don't think I could still be 100% comfortable around somebody like that. I mean,
not that they committed that sort of crime.
Exactly.
No, I mean, like, obviously we're not judging people who have schizophrenia, but for somebody who's done that crime, like, to do something so horrific.
I mean, obviously I understand that it's managed with medication and stuff and that, and there are probably ones out, you know, people out there that
are fine, yeah.
But I mean, when you have committed that crime,
well, that's it. That's what we're talking about. Like the fact that the person has committed crime. You know, I just think that it should be on your record. And
what if poor Tim's family? I wonder what they're thinking about that.
I don't know, bad.
I mean, it obviously sounds like he's living in the area, isn't he? So I mean, to know that he's actually walking around in the area that you live in,
and like he's had his name changed, so if they did want to track him down, it would be a lot harder because he's changed his name. I mean, just I thought that case was just absolutely horrendous.
that is, and
the fact that somebody hasn't been punished
I
for
think
it.
you know, obviously, as I said, you know, the case is the killing obviously is, you know, horrific, but the aftermath in it is just as horrific in itself.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, that is awful. To, you know, yes, you know, he's obviously murdered somebody, which is unthinkable as it is, but to then know what happened after that is just.
And the thing is, the family hasn't.
It's like a separate crime.
Yeah, the thing is, like with the family as well, they haven't got anybody taking responsibility for it. You know what I mean? Like Vincent himself, he was prepared to take responsibility for it and take the death sentence, but of course that wasn't the case because they didn't have the death sentence.
No.
But like they haven't got anybody to blame for it, really. Look, because nobody's took, as I said, like, Tim's mum was saying, like, she thinks that the police should take responsibility, you know, for the aftermath, which I totally get.
I think they should.
But I just think that would be so hard, like, trying to deal with that kind of thing happening and not having the justice, not having somebody to blame for it.
Yeah. Especially when you know who that person is.
Yeah.
And they obviously are.
They're living he's living as a free man. And that must be so hard. And on the other side, you know, obviously, I know it's different because of the mental health aspect to it, but just for their side, the family side of it, to know that somebody has basically got away with killing their family member must be absolutely
especially
horrific.
in the manner that it's happened. It's just awful. And I do think the police definitely have a part of the blame to take there, because
definitely,
you know,
for after what happened, obviously not the actual killing.
I would love to have known the reasons why they didn't. That, I think, not that would have made it any better, but at least you could have maybe tried to process why they thought the way they thought. Like, why did they not, you know, get him a lot earlier? Why did they leave him for 4 hours to just do whatever he pleased on that bus? You know.
Yeah, I know.
So
yeah, that was horrendous.
Yeah, that is pretty horrific, actually. That's one of the worst.
So thank you to everybody for listening. If you'd like to get in contact with us, then our social media and whatnot is all in the show notes.
And if you do enjoy listening to our episodes every week and you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe, rate and review.
Thanks for listening.